Today I want to talk about something foundational but often overlooked: 3 degrees of freedom, or 3DOF, specifically when it comes to controllers. You might be thinking, why focus on 3DOF when 6DOF is everywhere now? Yeah, that's a fair question. But I think that understanding all the tools that we have, even the ones that might seem less cutting edge or obsolete, still have a role to play. Just like with gaze targeting as an input, there are still uses for 3DOF today, especially if your target audience sits in a lower income bracket. They actually have to be able to afford the tech you're trying to get them to use. We'll still have to see how prominent 3DOF is in the future, especially as more and more smart glasses, XR glasses, and AI glasses come out on the market. Many of those are native 3DOF, so depending on who wins the tech race and what those headsets end up looking like, 3DOF controllers may become very relevant again. So don't fully dismiss them yet. And so for those of you who don't know what the heck 3DOF is, let me take a step back and explain. In the real world, objects can move in 6 ways: up, down, left, right, forward, back, rotating along X, Y, and Z axes. And we call this 6 degrees of freedom, or 6DOF. However, in digital space, you don't always have that full range of motion. It depends on the tech. With XR headsets, you could have either 6 degrees of freedom or 3 degrees of freedom. In XR, 6 degrees of freedom will give you the same freedom that you have in real life, with the exception that you can defy gravity in XR, and we'll get into that in another video. With 3 degrees of freedom, you can rotate your head along X, Y, and Z axes with pitch, roll, and yaw, but you can't move along those axes in 3D space. Think of it like only being able to move your head and not your body. If you try to physically move in real space with a 3DOF headset, the world will just follow you around on a gimbal. And that's also how the 3DOF controllers behave. Think of them more like a TV remote. You can move them around to make selections, but they're not tracked in 3D space the way 6DOF controllers are. And that means you need to take into account the limitations of these controllers when you're designing for inputs and headsets. First of all, very important, 3DOF headsets usually only have 1 controller, not 2. And your options are limited to what's available on that 1 controller. For example, it's very common for XR applications to have different options available on each controller, like with Shapes XR, where you have the palette on 1 controller while creating with the other controller. You can't have that kind of setup with a 3DOF controller, since they can't be tracked in physical space. With that limited capability in mind, let's talk about best practices. Since 3DOF controllers look and behave like TV or presentation remotes, you want to emulate the controller in the virtual space. Think about when you get a new TV remote and you're not familiar with all the buttons yet. You keep misclicking or having to look at the buttons to see which one to click. In VR headsets, you won't be able to see the remote since your view of the real world is blocked by the virtual world. And so that's why you want to emulate the controller in virtual space. That way, people don't have to remember which button does what. This won't be an issue for mixed or augmented reality since you can see the real world and the actual controller. It's only really an issue for virtual reality. It's important that with 3DOF controllers in particular, that you don't emulate models of hands in place of the controllers. This would give people the assumption that the headset and the controllers have capabilities that aren't there in 3DOF controllers. So show the controller. And also include tooltips or other memory cues to remind people which button performs what action. If you have access to a 3DOF headset with a controller, give it a try and see what works and what doesn't. Have a variety of other people try the headset and observe how they interact. Observe them to see where they struggle. That's the best way to learn and verify for yourself what will work with the XR experience you want to create. You can click on the screen right now to check out that video I mentioned about gaze targeting. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.